Hey everybody, Gage here from Sharp. So you're thinking about a petty knife. That's a fantastic idea. Petty knives are an essential to either the home cook or the professional chef, and I'll tell you why. They are super versatile, great for butchery tasks, small vegetables, more intricate garnish work, and great just to kind of have kicking around your station, whether you're in a professional kitchen or at home, for all those little weird jobs that come up. Now, if you're shopping for a petty, you are being inundated with options, both in terms of steel type, handle material, different makers, and of course, different sizes. So in today's video, we thought we'd break down some of the different sizes of petty knives that you'll come across, what they are good for depending on their size, and which one might be most appropriate for you. So let's get into it. Now, generally speaking, you are going to find petty knives come in one of 5 different sizes: a 90mm, a 120 or a 135mm, a 150, or the biggest, 180. You can sometimes find them in 210 as well, but we're kind of getting into like sujihiki or slicing territory at the 210mm range. In today's video, we are going to just go through a bunch of different cutting tests to determine which size of petty knife might be right for you. We're going to break down some chickens, we're going to chop up some onions and carrots, we're going to trim up some Brussels sprouts, peel some apples, and chop up some garlic. We feel like these 5 or however many different tests we're gonna put these knives through will give you a good idea of what size is most appropriate for what you plan to use your petty knife for. It'll be interesting to see like what a 90mm petty knife is capable of and what a 180mm petty knife is capable of and what some of the advantages and disadvantages of the different sizes will be. So in today's video, we're going to be comparing the Moto Kyuchi ironclad white number 1 180mm petty knife with this burnt chestnut handle with a black plastic ferrule on it. We've also got the 150mm Shigeki Tanaka Ginsen Nashiji octagonal walnut with black packawood ferrule. We've got the Tosaichi Bright. This is made from Algami Super with stainless cladding and has a western black packawood ferrule on it. And finally, we have the Seki Kenetsugu Seiyun Damascus 90mm petty, which can also be thought of as a paring knife. This is what it would be called in the Western style kitchen. So without further ado, let's get started with breaking down some chickens. Okay, 180 with a chicken, here we go. Now, I'll be completely honest, I typically, when I shop for a petty knife, I go after a 135. And I find the 135 is the best balance sort of between all the different sizes, but I'm interested to see how we do with some of the larger sizes and some of the smaller sizes today. So I feel like the longer knives are actually going to be better for the chicken. And so far so good here. We're making it through no problem. Ideally, what you want with a petty knife or any knife for breaking down chickens is sort of like a more slender profile. So you don't want too much blade height on it because that's just going to get in your way and make things a little more difficult. You want a nice pointy, sharp tip on it, which this guy has, of course, as well. And I feel like the extra length is going to make the cut through the breastbone much easier here. Having that extra length, yeah, really does make things very nice.
Going breast first.
Whatever, Jake. Don't forget that nice morsel of goodness there. So yeah, this has been very pleasant. I think if I was buying a petty knife just for breaking down chickens, a 180 I think would be very appropriate. It would also be super helpful, I guess. Something that we won't really talk too much about here is like cooked. Once you've cooked up your protein there. So like obviously the longer knives are going to be better at slicing tasks. So once I've got this this breast cooked, for instance, and I need to slice it up after, having that extra length on this guy is going to be really helpful. So yeah, that was a breeze. Nice sharp knife, went through this bad boy no problem. We've got very little flesh left on here, but we'll save that for some stocking. And we've got all of our pieces here. I guess I'll just debone a thigh here and see how that goes with the longer knife. Of course, with the longer the knife, the more difficult it's going to be to control the tip of the blade, obviously because your hand is a little further away. Now, I won't lie, I've broken down chickens with a 240 Gyuto before, so I feel like this is not going to feel overly long for me here. And of course, you can always just choke up a little bit further on the 180 if you want to get your finger, your index finger a little closer to the tip of the knife. Look at that. Yeah, not my best work, but not too much flesh on there. So yeah, that was very easy. 180 with the chicken, no problem. Highly recommend. Okay, 150mm petty knife with the butchering the chicken. I'm gonna be honest, this probably be much the same as the 180 here. The difference isn't really all that substantial here. It might be a little bit easier, the deboning tasks with a slightly shorter knife. And it certainly is a little more nimble, like I can get in and around stuff a little easier. I'm not worried about poking myself with the tip of the knife when I'm working with the 150. I still got enough length that I can, I'm sure, quite easily get through this part as well. Oh, we're getting a little slip slidey. Yeah, so I'll be honest, this is pretty much exactly the same as the 180. I would argue though that, like, again, once we've got this bad boy cooked and we're going to slice it up after the fact, we're definitely gonna have an easier time with the 180 as opposed to the 150 here. Just the added length is going to allow you to do longer drawing strokes. I'm not noticing a tremendous difference between the 180 and this guy, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah, easy peasy. Deboning is certainly more comfortable with this 150mm size. You know, even though you're able to choke up on the knife a little bit when you're working on with the 180, it's certainly still, you're a little far from home. My index finger is quite a bit closer to the tip here, so I can really get in there with relative ease and not worry again about jabbing myself with the longer knife. So the 150, I would say, if I was choosing between the two and the final deciding factor was breaking down chickens, I would probably go with the 150 over the 180. But we'll see with some of the other tests later on here how the 180 might benefit you. All right, 135 petty with a chicken here. I feel like I'm gonna be the most comfortable with this guy because it's just what I'm used to using. In fact, this is the petty knife that I have at home. If you have been following the channel for any length of time and you caught our Gage's Fave petty knife video, you'll know that I selected this one. We've done two of them. So one of them I selected the Matsubara petty, and then in the other one I selected this one. Both are great knives. This one I really like because when I'm breaking down chickens, I like the little finger notch on the Western style handles. Algami Super is my favorite steel type. Holds its edge a really long time, and I appreciate the stainless cladding on this guy. Even after testing with the two larger ones, I definitely feel much more comfortable with this guy breaking down a chicken. I feel like I have enough length that I can do everything I need to, but it's not so long that I feel like I'm gonna be jabbing myself while I'm going. I guess the true test for that is what I'm doing right here, which I'm actually finding is easier with the slightly shorter blade here. You know, wishbone out of the way. Yeah, I guess what I'm kind of discovering here is, like, especially, and honestly, I kind of knew this already, but when you're breaking down, or when you're doing any butchery task, like, the length of the knife isn't super important, because you really are just using, like, the very tip of your blade. It's certainly nice when you're doing those longer strokes, taking the breasts off, but I would say like 135 is certainly more than enough length to do that sort of thing. Again, where you might benefit from the longer knives when you're doing butchery or like slicing work is once the breast is cooked and maybe you want to do like nice slices. It's certainly possible with the 135, but the 150 and even better the 180 is going to make that a lot easier because you'll have much more blade to do those long drawing strokes with. We have one more test here, which is the deboning, which again, I feel like is going to be easier with this guy as well. But just for the sake of consistency. Yeah, and as I suspected, like again, you can choke up on the 150 and the 180 But you can also choke up on the 135, and I've got my finger even closer to the tip of the knife, which makes it a lot easier to get in to where I need to. So again, if we're just going by chicken butchery and not taking into account like slicing after the fact, I'm thinking we got one more knife to go, but I'm really thinking the 135 is going to be the one. But stay tuned. We'll break down a chicken with a little paring knife here next. Alrighty. Ashlyn threw away a bunch of my freezer bags.
Why?
I don't know, because...
Like new?
No, I save them, I wash them out, and then I dry them, and then I save them. Because, dude, it's like frickin'... They're not cheap, man. And this is like hefty plastic. Like this is gonna last in a landfill forever. Bird number 4 with the 90mm petty knife or paring knife. Let's see what happens here. I'm interested. I might eat my words here and find this to be the best one for breaking down a chicken, but I feel like that's probably gonna be the thing it's best at, taking the wings off. It's certainly obviously quite possible. It's definitely not Gage.
For shame.
It's certainly possible, but it's definitely not quite as nice. It's certainly nice having a little bit of extra length. Yeah, like that was weird. Like having a little more length to sort of, like you don't want to do too much sawing, but there's inevitably going to be times where you need to kind of use a little more of the length of the blade. And I'm definitely finding taking the legs off a little tricky. This is probably going to be the most difficult one. So what I'm noticing is that when you, another thing, and maybe I've never thought about this before, but when you're slicing, like you kind of use the heel of the knife as like your end point for where your tip's going to end up. So not having the extra length to sort of like tell me or guide me where to go is certainly a little more difficult. I also feel like if the 180 was too long or made me feel like I was going to jab myself because it was too long, I feel like the 90 is making me feel that way also, but because it's a little too short, like I don't know why I feel that way, but like
I feel like your left hand is too close to the heel of this knife.
That's what I'm feeling, yeah.
And when you're looking at the tip?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So yeah, like not terrible. It's still got really good yield off that. There's like very little flesh on there, so that's nice. And I imagine it's going to be quite good for deboning as well, but let's see. Here we go. Yeah, it's definitely tough. Like normally I would just do like one quick swipe through that, but I just don't have enough length on my blade to do it with this one. So I'd imagine this part's going to be this knife's going to be the best for this specific task, again, because I can just get my finger real close to the tip of the knife and it's going exactly where I want it to go. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, you don't want to be like switching between knives, like I'm not going to use like a 180 for certain parts and a 90mm just for this one specific part of breaking down the chicken, because that's going to take too much time switching between knives and stuff. So yeah, the 90mm certainly can break down a chicken. It is certainly not ideal for this though. All right, next we're on to some like in the hand stuff. So of course, what many people use like a shorter knife like this for is for trimming up smaller vegetables in the hand, maybe peeling an apple, for instance. So we'll show you what that's like with the 90mm, and I'm gonna say this guy is gonna be the best for this sort of stuff. If you've ever worked in a restaurant before, you've done probably a case or 100 of Brussels sprouts, and having a short little knife like this certainly makes it much easier to trim off the weird leaves on the outside, cut them in half, get them ready for the oven or the deep fryer. So the 90mm is great for this sort of stuff, working off the board in your hand. I am not a very good peeler of things with a knife, but let's give her a try. If you've ever watched I don't know if you guys have ever seen those videos of like the Japanese guys that just go like, and they do it with like a frickin' gyuto. So I don't know, maybe I'm just, well, I know I'm just very not good at that. But a shorter knife is definitely gonna make this sort of thing easier. I don't know why you would ever do this, to be honest with you, unless you are good at it, like the Japanese people are. Just get yourself a peeler, honestly. If I don't know, if maybe you like to eat apples, like did you guys ever see? Frick, what's that movie? You know that movie where the like homeless guy like kidnaps the young kid? Oh, he travels on the train and he just like shows up in their neighborhood one day. And I always like, anytime someone like cuts an apple like this, it just makes me think of that, because there's like a scene in that movie where he's like eating an apple and he's like carving it with his Bowie knife and like eating it.
If we know what movie Gage is talking about, let us know down below.
I don't know. I personally, if I'm cutting up an apple, I just do it on the board. But if you like to eat apples this way, then 90 mil petty is going to be great at that. So there's the 90 mil. I definitely would say we're going to test the rest of them out here, but I would say the 90 mil is probably going to be the best at that. You know, the 135 though might give her a run for its money here. It definitely feels a little more scary because there's a little more blade here to deal with, and I feel like I'm gonna frickin' slice my, what is this thing called?
That's the drumstick.
I don't think that's the technical term. I could be wrong.
I could use my lifeline and call Michaela.
I'm sure it's got a name, right? So this is definitely nice. Like if I had the option to have two knives, one petty knife for like larger tasks, like breaking down a chicken and that sort of thing, and then a smaller one like that for doing stuff like that, I'd probably take the 90 mil. But if I wanted one petty knife to do it all, this is easy enough to do with the 135. I'm getting the hang of it now too. So the 135 would definitely be a front runner for this sort of thing as well. Oh, apple, peeling apple. Yeah, still terrible at this.
You got to go for the radial peeling.
So you want me to go this way?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
It'll never work.
I guess that is a little easier. Again, just use a peeler, man. I don't think I would ever do this in any circumstance. And it's about as easy, or I should say as difficult as it is with the 90 mil. So yeah, either cut your apple on a board just like so. Look at that. Wow. Or
you made it look so easy.
I remember we said we wanted to do apples, and on the way here I was like, apples. So 150 with Brussels sprouts and apple off the board in your hand. This is a little on the more terrifying side. But again, like I'm only really using like the heel of the knife here, so it's actually not so bad. And if I get my hand in the right spot, it's pretty easy. Yeah, so this is actually pretty good, man. I don't know, I might be kind of coming around to the 150 here.
I'm team 150.
You're team 150, eh? Jake's team 150. I came into this team 135, but I'm starting to wonder if the 150 might be the optimal size.
I mean, I did want one of those Miyazaki 180s, but you guys bought them all, so.
Yeah, those did not last, eh? Those are sweet. Well, I guess we'll see with the 180 now, because like this is fine. Yep. Still really bad at this. Surprise, surprise. Jake wants me to do it this way. He says it's easier.
You got to get it all off in one peel.
Not for me. I'm getting a little better at this though now. This is kind of fun. Maybe I should try to get as good as those Japanese guys. How many apples do they peel before they are able to do that, I wonder?
Yes.
All of them. So yeah, again, never gonna do that myself. But for what it's worth, if you do that sort of thing, the 150 is certainly capable of that. I should also mention, like, my hands are on the smaller side, so like I probably have like less room than some other people might with a knife of this size. So if you got bigger mitts, the 150 scores more points, I would say. And I'm actually really digging it for the Brussels sprouts too. Nothing too scary with that. Cool, last knife with the Brussels and apples is the 180. Now, judging by my experience with the 150, I feel like I'm gonna really like this guy in hand as well. I came into this thinking that like in hand off the board work would be really challenging with this guy. And I'm certainly not great at working off the board in my hand. I typically work on the board. Even when I'm doing Brussels sprouts, I typically would just like do that. But this is fine. I'm actually, maybe I might change my Brussels technique here. I don't know, I still do find that pulling it into my finger really scary, but...
That's why I like the 150, because like when you're doing stuff like this, I don't feel like that extra length really gets in the way that much, but when you need it...
It doesn't. I totally agree. Like I kind of figured like the extra length, especially working off the board in my hand like this, I was gonna like feel really uncomfortable, but it's pretty good. I'm digging it. Okay, last thing, you're gonna watch me fail at this, like you have many times before. Yeah, and same result here. This is certainly more challenging now because the blade height is getting pretty high here now. So like I'm really having a tough time opening my hand enough to get my thumb where it needs to be and peel at the same time. Though I'm actually doing a better job. Maybe it's because I'm having to go slower. But yeah, I'm never gonna do that. So everyone, however you use your knife is totally fine. No judgment here. And in fact, if you're better at that than me, then I envy you, but I'm not good at that. So there you have it. The 4 petty knives through the Brussels and apples. I'm gonna say the 150 actually was probably the one I enjoyed using most there.
Okay, okay. I think this is a good test specifically for like the board work because I know the guys make fun of me at the shop, but I use my 150 petty for like, once I whip it out, if it's like the knife I need, even if it's not the most practical, like I'll dice an onion with it, I'll carve my, like you were talking about carving the chicken breast, like if I already got it out, like I'm using it.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like petties are super capable knives for sure. And like, I agree with you. Like if you've got one out on the countertop and like, I don't know about you, but I have my, I've got my 135 just kicking on the countertop all the time at home. And because it's there, it's just what I grab to use for pretty much everything. I'm supposed to bring cheese. That's the one thing that I know you said you like the petty knife for cutting cheese, but I find I get those thin rectangle blocks of cheese, and I find that the shorter blade means that it gets a little thicker behind the edge quicker, so you end up just like smushing it instead of actually slicing through it nicely.
I feel like it helps the cheese not stick to it.
All right, guys. Well, here we go. We're gonna do some onions now, just to give you an idea of like how they hold up against some larger veg. So we'll start with the smallest guy here. I feel like this is not gonna be enjoyable. And yeah, like I've got barely enough blade length to get through the onion there, so that was not, obviously still possible, but not ideal. Yes, that was fine, right?
Let's wait for the crosscuts.
That's so like this is where it's gonna get tricky because you don't have nearly enough blade. See, look what's happening. I'm getting like these little end pieces here that I'm not able to get through.
What's the movie where they're slicing garlic with a razor blade?
Goodfellas?
Perhaps. That's what this looks like.
It does, right? And like, see how like weird my hand is? I've got like this like gremlin claw thing going on here. I'm not able to cut through quite all the way. So that's a fail in my books. Like we got like decent results there, but like that took me about 4 times longer than it would normally take to dice an onion. So that was not ideal.
When people say they're scared of big knives, this is how I imagine they cook.
Well, I'm more scared of this knife because like I feel like I have to get my fingers like even too close, and then it's impossible to like keep your guide finger and your knife in contact with one another. So I suspect doing the julienne's gonna be not terrible, but I had some like stuck together pieces there that were not ideal. So yeah, so this is not fun. I did not enjoy that. Also, now I know a lot of people like the taller blades because they feel like it gives them more travel for their actual chopping hand. I get the travel for my chopping hand from leaving my hand off the board and using the length of the knife. So it doesn't really matter how tall the blade is as long as I can keep my hand off of the board while I'm chopping my ingredient. But that's pretty much impossible with this guy because it's not long enough. So my knuckles were dragging for sure on that. So yeah, again, definitely not fun using a 90mm petty knife on onions. Okay, 135mm petty through an onion. I've done this many times before. It's certainly not as nice as using like a bunka or a santoku, but it's definitely gets the job done, and it's not nearly as terrifying as using a 90mm, but just to show you guys what I mean here, once I finish destroying this onion. Yeah, so much nicer. I've got just barely enough length to sort of keep my my fingers off the board. When I do this cross cut, I can get all the way through, no problem. It's definitely a little trickier, like I said, than using like a bunka or a santoku or whatever, but certainly much nicer than that 90mm petty knife was, like way nicer. Yeah, and that was a breeze too. I'm still getting a little bit of the gremlin claw happening here when I'm doing that, and it would be nice to have a touch more length so I can get my hand off the board. But that I think was a pass for sure. Okay, 150mm petty knife going through an onion. Oh whoa!
User error.
That was definitely user error. I feel like this one, I feel like definitely the 180 is going to be the best at this. But the 150 will be good too. So I hope you guys are getting some insights here. Like there's pluses and minuses to every one, obviously. Like we're trying to find, I guess we're not really trying to find anything out in this video. We're just kind of having fun chopping some stuff. What I'm noticing so far is that I overlooked the 150 for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe I was just using it one time and it just didn't feel right to me, but this one's feeling right, man. I shouldn't have overlooked it so soon. Yeah, it's certainly way nicer than the 90, way nicer than the 135 as well for the dice. You're definitely getting like more height on the blade when you're getting into these longer ones, so it certainly helps with this up and down chopping. Yeah, that was very nice. I guess we're going in order from worst to best here. I suspect. We'll see how the 180 does, but that was the most enjoyable size so far on onions. All right, last one, the 180 petty on onion. Here we go. Yeah, and I can already tell this is gonna be the one. Just from those two cuts. Once again, having a little trouble on the second peel here. So it's all right. I'm out of practice after our Guinness book has not gone back to me about our onion chopping world record, so
we're scared.
That was a fun video. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the one right there, eh? I think you could that was my best dicing, and it felt the most comfortable for sure. Oh yeah, this thing's sweet, man. The 180 size is growing on me here.
So what we're saying is bigger is better.
Bigger is better, apparently. I was like hard 135 coming into this, thinking there was no way my mind was going to change, and I'm starting to feel like I might need to take one of these 180s home with me. Okay, carrot test. Now this one is really going to show off the differences in edge geometry between the different sizes. So a 90 mil, I'm going to say like you can certainly cut carrots with, obviously, pretty easy. This knife's brand new too, so it's nice and sharp. But almost went in. You're definitely going to have a tougher time with stuff like this. You don't have much blade length to work with here, so you know I got no room for my knuckles when I'm chopping. If I come down here, obviously better, but then all the veg is gonna fall off the board onto the floor and stuff. So yeah, this is no fun. It's really hard to get any sort of like speed going when you're using such a little tiny knife, because you can't like keep your fingers and knuckles. You can't keep your knife and your knuckles in contact with one another. So this is not ideal. Obviously, I can chop with reasonable speed, but certainly not enjoyable.
I feel like this is like a punishment for the new guy in the kitchen.
Yeah. The 135, I suspect, is going to be obviously a little bit better, but we still don't have much blade height here. So like, and not that this is a thick knife by any means, but the edge geometry on it is not going to be really conducive to going through carrots super easily. And like, you know, you've got a good carrot knife when like you can cut through and you don't hear any like rippage whatsoever when you're doing like the thicker part. And not that there's a ton of that happening here, but we are getting a little bit of that ripping sound. Oh yeah, and this blade is definitely thicker than that one, so that was a little gnarly there. But I'm more easily able to keep my hand off the board here, so I got lots of travel. I can go quite a bit quicker on this sort of thing. So the 135 is definitely getting into like better territory. I can kind of get some rocking going with the 135. Again, I'm a little close to the edge of the board, a little closer than I'd like to be, so I'm worried that food's going to be like falling off the cutting board as I do this. Certainly easier to use that pushing motion. But again, edge geometry not really lending itself super well to the carrot. I'd like something with a little bit more blade height doing this sort of thing. So certainly better than the 90 mil, but I can imagine the 150 and especially that 180 is going to be awesome going through the carrots here. I guess the other thing we haven't really touched on with the blade length as well is like to get the best performance out of your knife, you want to try to use as much of the length of the knife as possible, right? So with a 90 mil, I've only got 90 millimeters of travel to work with. So I'm having to apply more pressure down as I'm going away from myself to get through the carrot in time. With this guy, I can really use the whole length of the knife to make longer strokes, which is making it much easier to get through this here carrot, and that is much more enjoyable as well. And then I've got lots of blade length, so I can do a rocking motion with this 150 very easily. Push cut, no problem. Yeah, so we're getting into like actually enjoyable carrot cutting territory here with the 150. We'll see how much better the 180 is here. Oh, this is just actually a really sweet knife. Like it, I think it's on the site for like 130 or something like that. It's pretty affordable. It's definitely quite reactive. Like it's got a patina going on it already. But man, it's sharp and it is going through this carrot like butter. Look at that.
Like we're crossing into really good line knife territory.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like when I was working a meat station, I had a 240 mil Suji that I would keep on my station for like slicing steaks and stuff. But a 180 might have been the way to go back then. And this guy specific, look at that. That was crazy. This is the most affordable. Or, okay, no, this is the most affordable, but only by like $7. This guy's only like 135 and this guy's like 125 or something like that. So that
if we're going dollar to inch here.
Yeah, so like for the value, like this guy is freaking sweet. Push cut, no problem. Rock chop with this guy, no problem. So yeah, definitely if you're looking for a petty knife that you can use to chop vegetables in addition to all of the other things we've talked about, I would say either the 150 or the 180 is the way to go. I came in again thinking 135 all the way, but I think I've changed my mind here. I think I'm team 150, 180 now.
And like, I know it might still seem kind of silly to be using a petty to do carrots and stuff like that, but this is longer than most Santokus and bunkas.
Fair, that's a good point.
Like, it's different, but I also know that a lot of people prefer to use really shallow gyutos, and it almost falls into super shallow gyuto territory.
It does, and Justin Kana made that video about like how he uses only a Suji for everything now, and like I can kind of see why, right? Like it's got enough length on it. If you're comfortable with the up and down chopping motion, like you don't need too much blade for travel. So yeah, this is sweet, man. The last thing we're going to do here is just in an effort to articulate like the benefits of the different lengths for tip work. So we're going to do a little Brunoise garlic here, but let me just get a little tidy here. Jake, I hope you can make this an entertaining video.
I will do my best.
Okay, last test. We've got some garlic here. Again, we just wanted to kind of show off like how easy or not easy it is to use the tips of these guys. So like I am definitely... I know it's not necessary to chop up super fine garlic, but I just love using my knife, and this is one of my favorite things to do. Chopping up garlic super fine. So I came into this thinking that this guy would be really good at this, and it certainly is, but again, I just find like this knife, like the length really lends itself more to this type of grip where you've got your fingers over the top of it and you're using it like towards yourself to like trim or peel or whatever. It's really not like a comfortable length to sort of like, you need to sort of spread your hand out a little bit more to point with your index finger. So while it's certainly possible, like you're seeing here, it's definitely not comfortable. And like I'm constantly having to sort of like smush my fingers together and I'm banging my knuckles off the board and stuff. So yeah, like you can certainly get nice results with this, but it's definitely not super enjoyable.
You look like you're like cooking on a little tyke set. Like it looks silly.
So the 135, I've done this a ton. This is definitely going to be more fun. Yeah, having that little like notch on the handle is really enjoyable for me. I like that a lot. I've got enough blade length that I can hang my hand off the end of the table and get nice knuckle clearance. Yeah, that was way more fun than the 90. Way quicker, obviously, as well. I'm sure there's an element of me just being a little more comfortable with this size of knife, but that guy's I'm gonna say it, just no good for tip work or like any sort of like up and down vegetable chopping. That guy's not ideal for. If you have even smaller hands than me, then it might be nice, but I don't know. That 90mm, I'm not really feeling that guy too much. The 150 is sweet for sure. I feel like I'm as comfortable using it as I am the 135, but now I can do two halves of the same clove of garlic at one time because I got that extra blade length. So that was really nice. I quite enjoyed that. Yeah, if you're only gonna have one, I'm starting to think that the 180 is the way to go. Like I wasn't as comfortable doing the chicken with this guy, but I'm sure like if I used it more, I'd get used to it. And like any longer knife, like the 240 Gyuto is something that we highly recommend, and for much of the same reasons. Like you can do so much more with them with the extra length, and once you get used to them, even the stuff that's maybe a little easier with the smaller ones becomes easy enough to do with the longer knives, and then you've got that extra versatility. So that was really nice as well. I just think this is my favorite knife, and it would be interesting to do like a test with like the 180 of this versus the 150, 20, 90 if we had all those sizes, you know, that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, let me clean up here and then I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, there you have it. We tested out all 4 different sizes here. We've got the 180, 150, 135, and the 90mm. This guy's not for me. Not taking a 90mm home. I did not like using it for really anything. The only exception being like working off the board in my hand. I did find it the most enjoyable knife to use for the Brussels sprouts, but that was it. That was the only task that this guy I actually like enjoyed using. For everything else, it sucked. The 135 I enjoyed on the Brussels sprouts, not quite as much as this guy, but more so than I enjoyed using these two knives. And it's, like I said, the one I came in here thinking I was going to choose. Now, I thought that I would really end up choosing this one for breaking down chicken and stuff like that. And I think it was still the one I enjoyed the most, breaking down chickens. But it wasn't a substantial difference when compared to the 150 or even the 180. So I feel like for that reason, these two guys, like I'll talk about in a second here, excelled at some of the other tasks more than this guy. And this wasn't better enough than these guys at breaking down chickens for me to make this my choice. So I've changed my opinion here. The 150 was awesome. I really enjoyed the length for breaking down chickens. It wasn't too long. It was long enough. And the edge geometry is getting better on this guy. So when we were doing like onions and carrots and stuff like that, it was really nice to work with. Off the board in my hand, like you saw when I was doing it, I was getting more comfortable as I went along. Not something I do a lot of, but I'm sure if I worked with this off the board in my hand more and more, I'd get more and more comfortable with it and find it quite easy to do that sort of stuff with. So I'm definitely gonna pick either the 150 or this 180 here, and I thought that this guy was going to give me a lot more trouble when I was breaking down chickens. I also thought it was going to give me a lot more trouble off the board in my hand. And while it certainly wasn't as nice as the 90mm, it was certainly like easy enough to use off the board in my hand. I didn't really have much trouble breaking down the chicken with this guy. It was a little weird. Like at times I felt I was going to jab myself a little bit, but again, if I continue using it more and more, getting comfortable with it, I'm sure it would be fine. And it really excelled at the carrots and onions. So if you're looking for, and this is actually something that we get asked quite frequently, and Jake, you might back me up here, but some people just find the Santoku or the Bunka or the Gyuto just to be like too much. And a petty knife like this is a little more or a little less intimidating. So if you're looking for like an all-arounder, maybe you have someone, maybe it's yourself or someone that you're buying a knife for that just feels too intimidated by those large knives, a 180 petty like this might be the way to go. It's great at chopping veggies. You can break down chicken with it relatively easily, work off the board in your hand. So honestly, I feel like if Jake said, if you had to go home right now and cook Christmas dinner with any of these four knives, it's going to be this guy, the 180mm Moto Kyuchi. There you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more comparison videos, let us know down below in the comment section what you would like to see us compare. This was just supposed to sort of give you an idea of what petty knife size would be the best. We're definitely going to do a battle of the blades with some petty knives that we have coming up here. We've also got a battle of the blades bunka video in the works. But let us know what shape and what specific knives you want to see us battle in the next episode of Sharp Knife Shop TV. In the meantime, smash that like button, subscribe to our channel for more knife related content, and until the next one, stay sharp.